Okay, folks. I see I'm driving. I just tried to prop my phone up in the little cup well or whatever, so that I could record while driving. Hopefully it doesn't fall over. But I am heading out to this community college campus. Hopefully the buildings are open today. I'm just going to try and sit down and study there. If not, then I'll have to drive back to my place and either study at home or if the library is still open, go there. But got to do a couple retakes, some exams for some of my engineering classes. Trying to clear those out with the sufficient grades so I can just be starting graduate school this fall. It honestly kind of seems like it's the only real way out of the financial and by extension, life-wise or lifestyle predicament that I'm in. And having to juggle a full-time job, full-time school, taking care of all sorts of other things. But thing that's really on my mind right now, and I guess why I'm recording this video, and I know I haven't posted in a while. I did want to respond to one comment this guy left, which is it is an accurate comment in some sense, but having to do with traumas and resolving traumas and that sort of deal. Because what's this guy doing? I get, sorry, I'm driving, but I don't know why they will give the walk sign to a pedestrian when they also give the green light to these cars. It just kind of seems sort of inane. I understand there's a whole you got to give them the right of way, you're required to, and all that, but anyways, I'm at this point in my life where I'm at because I have been able to resolve certain traumas, but obviously there's some that are still lingering, and some of these, it seems like, and it's just probably just a fact of life, that some of this stuff just never gets fixed. A lot of things in life you never really get closure for, because today, and I don't know how many people who are subscribed to me have been, subscribed for more than the last few months or something like that. I'd really have to go look at my analytics and see that sort of deal, because some people have subscribed and then unsubscribed, some people have subscribed again, some people have subscribed and just stayed around. But if Dark Magician is still out there, if he's still breathing, if he's still floating around, he definitely knows about this. But there was that girl back in undergrad. I call her the one-itis girl, just to have sort of a slang term, I guess. I didn't really want to be throwing her name around for obvious reasons. We live in the times we live in where it's very easy to sort of not just blow your cover, but actually face sort of consequence for that in real life. And even if you're just trying to talk through your problems or talk through whatever issues you're having, there's a whole other conversation about why as a man I can't, I have to sort of take this sort of angle on things, because you gotta maintain anonymity in order to talk about your issues as a guy, just to be able to get relief from them or resolve them without facing negative consequences, because that's just how things are stacked up. But she got married today, and she got married to the guy who she got with when she rubbed in my face, and apparently at some point in time he hit her way back when they were first together, and now they're getting married. And she was the one who she found out that I had a girlfriend already, and she proceeded to do whatever she could to try and lead me astray, which I resisted. But she did enough things that it, obviously caught the attention of my girlfriend at the time, and TLDR led to this, really, really, really bad breakup. And, the girlfriend I was with, like, she was, I don't want to say she was the one, because I don't even know about the truth of that, belief. But, I was thinking I was going to be married to that woman, when I was, 32, 33, I'd be married. She'd be a few years younger than me. She literally told me that she wanted to, like, lose her V card to me. And, vice versa. And, that breakup still, it haunts me. And to see someone like that one-eyed girl who, and I try not to throw the term narcissist around, willy-nilly, because, with a lot of terms that's been thrown around so many times, it's kind of like lost its meaning. It's just like, oh, let me guess, you're calling this person a narcissist because you just don't like them, or they didn't like you, or, they didn't, maybe you were the actual narcissist, maybe you're projecting, that sort of deal. But, Dark Magician was really the one who, like, when he heard me describe this girl's, behaviors, he was like, this woman sounds like a overt narcissist, not just like a covert narcissist who's like trying to hide it, trying to be like sneaky about it, but an overt narcissist. And, I ended up going down sort of a rabbit hole of reading a whole bunch of books, Rational Male, the whole pretty much up to that point, what had been published of the Rational Male series, as well as some other works like Dangerous Personalities by Joe Navarro. And it was really startling how, accurate that assessment was. But just because, like, you realize these things, by the way, if I start making sort of like a noise with my mouth other than talking, it's because I kind of got a bit of a cold and my throat's itchy. But but because, like, you realize these things or know these things, and it doesn't necessarily take away the emotional impact. And finding out, and I'll tell you how I found out. It's like, I have this other friend, this girl who, I think she may have had a crush on me at one point, but, that I didn't pursue anything with her because we were coworkers, and, I didn't really want that kind of drama. And I think I had just met her right after graduation, like my first, actual, like, job, in biotech, and, I look back now, I think she did have a crush on me. I kind of had a crush on her, but I didn't make any moves because, I was sort of coming out of the trauma of, not sort of, I was, just stepping out of the trauma of those last few years, and, there's very much the whole, like, don't eat where you crap, don't crap where you eat, I'm going to try and put it in as PG, or maybe not PG, as clean a way as possible, but there's also that mentality there. But, she moved on, got with this other guy who was, like, the lead for the shift, and then he went to, like, the product development team, and she did it within the company. But, she's a really cool person. I still consider her a friend of mine. Different politics in many ways. I mean, I'd say we wouldn't agree on that. That'd be like a point of contention. But, her and this guy, this is a different, girl. Her and, like, the guy from the company, like, they're now they're in the same company again, but they're getting married. And, I think they're set for like next year. But there's, like, websites for this stuff, and I was kind of like looking her up, and then, I saw that, and I'm happy for them, like, they're good people as far as I'm concerned, and, friends of mine, that sort of deal. But I think I was, like, looking through the website, I was just kind of like, I wonder what's going on with so-and-so, the one-eyed girl, and I typed in her name and with, like, the name of that website, and that popped up that her and that guy are getting married. And I remember when I found out about this, I think it was actually towards the end of last year. It wasn't like this year, it was like last year. But finding that out in the midst of, let me see, having lost my mother to cancer back in 2023, and then my grandma a few months later, and then the last like year and a half, feels like longer than that, when this like legal wrangling over my grandmother's estate and trying to keep the house in the family, and then apparently like, you know, other things happening. It's a real punch to the gut, so to speak, and it's triggering in the sense that it leads you to sort of like running through all those memories of that time, and it's like I went through all of that garbage, and what did I get for it, you know? I didn't get anything for it. Lost the girlfriend, even though I never cheated on her. That guy got with the girl, you know, the one-eyed girl got with this guy. You know, they were presumably sleeping together, even though he was like apparently beating the crap out of her, and it got so bad that like his friends had to intervene in order to get her to not walk away from him. And you know, her toying with me to get attention from me so she could like make him jealous, to like get him to bend to her will, and just all of that garbage, and how it tanked my GPA to the point that I couldn't get an internship that would have led to an actual engineering job, which would have allowed me to, you know, like have the kind of income that you need to have these days in order to not just survive, you know, but like, I don't want to use the word thrive, but have an actual future where, like, you know, with wife and kids and all that, not being able to have that, and then all the stuff that I have to do now, like, why am I having to, you know, drive half an hour from home to go and study at my age, these courses, that sort of thing, you know, other than my own decisions earlier in life, other than my family's decisions, really a large part of it is, you know, these jagoffs, you know. I mean, I would like to use other words, but I'm going to refrain from using them. I think it would distract in the conversation or whatever, but, and of course, you know, YouTube censors and all that. But, you know, I get to see these people, and it's not just her. Like, I found that this other guy who, I mean, I can pretty clearly say that he was also, at the very least, on the spectrum of narcissism, if not full-blown, because just some of his behaviors when he would see me getting, and a different guy, see me getting, like, more praise or attention, or being, like, kind of boosted in the social circle that we were in, and the backstabbing, conniving things he'd have to do to try and undercut me. But all of that, like, I was going to take all these engineering classes, upper division, to try and graduate, and my GPA tanked, all because of that. And it's like, I don't know, I'm kind of bitter. I'm definitely, you know, in the, you know, in the dumps, so to speak, you know, depressed about all this, because, you know, I didn't get anything for it. And you know, the guy that the one-eyed girl got with, I mean, he's got this like 6-figure engineering job. She's making probably around the same amount of money. You know, they'll be able to afford to like have a house and kids and all that stuff in this area. And there's things on politics and, you know, other issues like immigration I could comment on that relate to this, because these are folks who are not from here. And, you know, spoiled brat rich kids from families overseas that, you know, pay their top dollar to facilitate their success over here, while these folks come over here and, you know, wreck the life of, you know, myself, someone who was born and raised here. And, you know, there's this sort of ongoing theme there. It's happened to other members of my family where they dealt with, you know, similar situations, but it's just like the injustice of it, what it says about life in the world, and how things really work. And, you know, it makes it hard to keep going. I have to tell myself that something is gonna happen, that, the things and people I care about are gonna, not end up in a bad way, not gonna be destroyed. Even things in like pop culture, that these folks would be against and would, want to demolish for their own like narcissistic ends. But yeah, it eats away at me because also like this girl was from the same country as my ex-girlfriend, and they get to go and do all the things that my ex-girlfriend and I were gonna do when we got married. The whole gamut of everything, and I don't know. It's just like I had to somehow like not think about that as I'm dealing with illness and pretty much poverty and having to go do all this extra work, sitting there at some desk, in a building all on my own, without having some sort of like actual support from anyone, because like she would support him through all his hard times, and I don't have that kind of stuff. And it just kind of like, it also makes you wonder, like, if I were to hit my stride, like what would really motivate me to let some woman in. And God, I've had to, I'm just thinking about like I've had to deal with sexual harassment from homosexuals in the workplace, some that he's never had to deal with, the guy that she got with. I've had to deal with just rejection after rejection after rejection, and I don't know, it just kind of makes you question what's the point of it all. And I don't think anything has any inherent meaning. It's like you got to give it meaning, which is kind of like maybe the struggle that I'm trying to overcome here. But yeah, and I don't think there's any gurus out there. I don't care if it's I think you refer to Dr. Huberman or Jordan Peterson or whoever. There's no gurus out there who have the answers for you, and there's people who have advice, but I don't know. I kind of think that in a lot of cases there is no real like closure. It's sort of like something that you end up having to carry on through for like the rest of your life. And maybe one of my gripes is that I kind of hope that maybe, just maybe, I could be one of those guys who didn't have that sort of stuff. And there's a real bad accident driving by right now. Oh, jeez. Oh, no. Looks like somebody really got hurt. 3 cars, and, yeah, they got the fire department there. They got the ambulance. They have to stretch her out. At the very least, I haven't had that happen to me. Which I guess means that as long as I got that, I still have some sort of... I have the option or I have the opportunity to make things better. But, yeah. Because, getting back to, like there are things that I've talked to my dad about in the past. Some girls who like broke his heart. And it's really enlightening to see that even though he got married to my mom and they had their till death do us part marriage. I mean, just the fact that he could talk about some other women pretty much using him as sort of a surrogate boyfriend for a couple of weeks while he was in college, and how that affected him, and that he can still remember that decades after the fact. It's like I guess some of that stuff is just part of life. It's also kind of like why you can't really afford to, I guess, believe in some sort of grand universal like justice. You can't really afford to just like let your guard down or trust people too much or believe in some sort of, I don't know, some system of belief where you think that, like, like almost like a cosmic version of covert contract. You really can't afford to believe in that sort of stuff because you're just like leaving yourself open to abuse. It's kind of like I guess a really scummy family who doesn't really screwed up things to us, and the covert contract for that would be believing that we're family, and if we do good things for them, they'll do good things for us. And it's like, that's really not something that you can expect. You have to verbalize that. And if they don't like the fact that you're expecting, good things in return, or at least civil treatment from them, well then you don't let them in. You don't let them stay at your place. You don't give them any sort of assistance. You just leave them be. You keep them out. And if they try and force their way in, well, you have to fight back at that point. Force their way into your lives. You need to fight back at that point. But you have to have that sort of like fortitude to openly state that, so that you know who they are, and you don't put yourself in a position where they're gonna be able to harm you. Same thing with some of the other macro issues. I think, like, I don't know, immigration is really a controversial topic. Apparently, you're not supposed to really voice any sort of disdain for the way it's been handled, but similar thing there. Because once they're over here, now you got to deal with them. Now your people have to deal with them. Your citizens have to deal with them, and some really screwed up things like that happened in my family. It's happened, with these folks in school I've dealt with. Now they're over here, and even if you find out how screwed up they are, or you have some sort of legal basis to, get them out of here, it's just that much harder, and there's that much more. It's more of a struggle than it's like prevention versus cure. And Daddy, used to say like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's true. So you gotta take those steps to prevent those sorts of things happening in your life to the best of your ability. And you gotta be wise and not so trusting or naive about things. But anyways, once I get to this campus, assuming that the building's open and all that, I'm just gonna set myself up for several hours and have to just sit down and do the work, because I don't know, it's like the only thing I can do right now, and the only thing that hopefully, assuming my retake works out, will get me anything. It's really screwed up to have to sort of tell myself, that, because I had to tell myself that when I graduated from undergrad, give myself some sort of consolation prize, and it's really not enough, but I guess it'll have to do for now. Like the actual prize at this point in time, as screwed up as it sounds to be, getting the news somehow that something really screwed up or messed up had happened, and I'm like in a bit of schadenfreude. Particularly if it was like cheating involved, or divorce or something like that. That's something I can't really be like betting my life on or my happiness on, because unfortunately that's not exactly how life works. And if you go around with that kind of mentality, and people are going to think you're a psycho, and hell, maybe you will be a psycho. Anywho, that's kind of what's on my mind at this point. I'm going to finish up recording and just be driving, so hopefully I can upload this when I'm at the campus, and see you folks around. Okay, thanks. Bye.